Okay, you ready for the full list?
Go for it.
Okay, here we go. So, absolute top, financial affairs, just broad, general.
Solid.
From there, unfolding holdings, excellent little bit of rhyming.
Nice.
Standard and poor, which, as you have said, you would need to know what the S&P 500 is to get that one.
You would. You would. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
Small cap, which is a little bit charming. Again, maybe too much of a stock reference. Your new dough, dough spelled Dough.
Yeah. I think that's too American, isn't it? Like, do we
You
say
guys
dough
don't
here?
ever, yeah, you don't ever call money dough?
I mean, we know what it is. Like, we know what it means, but like, we won't ever say it.
Okay, what a shame. And then maybe my favorite, which was cow and sow, which we took bull and bear, which is a common investment thing, and then the female version of that is cow and sow.
I love that, but then you also had to explain it to me.
Yeah, which
So if you
is
had to explain it to me, I think a lot of people wouldn't get it. But then
yeah.
I'm also a bit slow with things like
Well, no, I think like everyone would have to. To be fair, I had to Google what a female bear was, and it came out with sow. And then when it rhymed with cow, I was like, this is absolutely perfect. But yeah, maybe too much explanation. But I
I
think when
feel
this
like people would
podcast,
also it would leave us open to be calling cows if
well, I
anyone
guess
didn't like us.
in the future, like if it were to go viral, like one of us could be cow and one could be sow.
Yeah,
We
and
wouldn't
then
ever
but
have to use
yeah,
our names. There you go.
yeah,
Excellent. And then cow and sow on the Dow, if you wanted it to be a little bit longer. There you go. Or just on the Dow, maybe. Clean it up a bit. And
yeah.
then strong independent finance. Terrible. Hate it.
Hate it. It's too cliche.
No. No. Material girl, if you want to make a direct TikTok reference.
Which why wouldn't you?
I know. And we could spell girl like Gurl. Like, if Gru was going to say girl.
Mm,
Yep. I think
I
that
like
would be
that.
good. Frolic in the folio. Fun. Lighthearted.
Fun. I like it.
Yeah. I think that should have been it. But that got rejected. I couldn't give a fund. Solid.
I think the only reason we didn't pick that was because it was taken
Yeah.
or
Someone
something
else had
very
it.
like it. Yeah,
Which
yeah.
was
Damn
a
that
huge
person.
bummer because that's really good. And then something's got to give. Something spelled SUM, like a sum.
Yeah, but like we're a maths teachers though. Maths teaching
Yeah, that would
podcast.
if we were teaching third grade math, that would probably be a fun thing we would come up with.
Yeah, if we
Okay.
were those people.
Yeah, and then gaslight gatekeep girl boss, also excellent. Not about finance.
Yeah, and then
So
we don't want to be like, oh, we're overusing Girlboss because
yeah,
you'll see later.
okay. And then shut up and thrive, excellent. Might open us up to a lawsuit from Rihanna.
True, we don't want that
Couldn't have that.
because she'd be on our radar.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think the first person to listen to this podcast will be Rihanna.
Obviously,
Yeah. Like she's our target market. And then
yeah,
finally, you better be saving.
yeah. But then we were worried about the brand and if we were allowed to say and we
Yeah.
just said it twice.
Which we're gonna find out when this gets edited. And if it gets completely edited out, it means we weren't allowed to say it, so no one will know. So there you go.
Sorry, Ray, if that editing jobs for you.
All right. Roll the music.
Hello, and welcome to FML Fund My Life, a podcast brought to you by MyWallSt. So, welcome to the very first episode of FML. My name is Nicole, and I'm the social media manager here at MyWallSt. With me today is my amazing co-host, Anne-Marie, who you might recognize from My Wall Street's infamous Stock Club podcast, and is one of our top investment analysts. Hello, Anne-Marie.
Hello. Thank you for
How are
calling
you?
me a top analyst, even though we only have 4.
Yes, and you're also the best female analyst.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's a tremendous high bar that we have here.
So I remember the other day we were actually chatting about, we think this might be the first Irish female-led investing podcast, which is very niche, but it's still cool that it's the first Irish one.
Definitely. I think it'll be exciting to kind of bring some investment information to a new audience, hopefully. And yeah, it's exciting. There are a couple caveats, of course, with that title is number one, I'm only half Irish, and number two, you are not in Ireland. So
Yes, I'm in Lisbon, yes, but I'm still Irish.
there you go. We are, and the company is Irish, so we're covered in that
Yes,
sense.
that's the main. Okay, so before we jump in, we might do a little bit of housekeeping. So Anne-Marie, with a few questions to answer. We both work in MyWallSt, but our listeners might not even know what that is. So what is MyWallSt?
Yeah, that's no problem at all. So My Wall Street is a company dedicated to helping you own your financial future by providing you with the information and resources you need to be a successful investor. We have a free Learn app. We manage a list of analyst pick stocks in the My Wall Street product, where we also keep you up to date on what is happening in the market. Well, it's also important, I guess we should say, that for those of you who are new to investing and wondering why you should start, here's a few reasons. Number one, it's a great way to make sure your savings stand the test of time because of inflation, which is a very hot topic at the minute, and really a lack of decent interest rates on savings account. You lose money when you squirrel it away in the credit union over time, which is a huge bummer. And so investing allows you to beat inflation and create a stream of passive income to help you achieve your long-term financial goals. And that could be anything: sending your kids to college, getting a down payment for a house, or even retiring early.
Yeah, and the above reasons, that's why we kind of created this podcast, basically, to make investing seem approachable, easy, and something you can actually enjoy. Because traditionally, investing and the stock market as a whole hasn't been that welcoming for women.
Yeah, and we kind of wanted to create a community for novice investors to ask questions and feel supported in their investing journey. And along the way, you'll learn a thing or two about the finance and business world.
So there you go. And without further ado, here's the very first episode of FML Fund My Life. So, Anne-Marie, can you tell our lovely listeners, when did you start investing?
Yeah, so I would have had some investments when I was like a kid, like back in the day, but I was not in control of them. And my dad is an accountant, so I have a bit of an unfair advantage. And also, I grew up in America, where I think investing is just kind of more on people's brains. So anytime I had money that was like sitting in my savings account for too long, my dad would always ask, did he want me to take a portion of it? And he's very much just kind of into index funds and that type of thing, not really doing picking individual companies. So really my kind of investment journey in the My Wall Street sense of picking my own stocks started really when I began working here. And it was really nice to kind of be in an environment and at a job and in a community where that was very normalized and people were talking about type of thing. And it was very empowering. You felt like, you know what, I have the resources to do this. I have the knowledge, the understanding, and I can trust myself. And that really made it easy. And that's where I started. Are you the same?
Yeah, I was the same as you, really. I think we actually started on My Wall Street around the same time. So that is when I began investing as well. Just having like access to all that information. I think we would have been like fools not to. We were learning all day about the benefits. We were writing all day about the benefits. And before I started, like I did have experience being like a financial writer, but for like currency exchange and mortgages and loans and things like that. But yeah, like the stock market was quite foreign to me. And I think a lot of other Irish girls, it's not something that's commonly discussed. So yeah, when I started here, I was like, okay, this is great. Like I need to get on this like as soon as possible. And even like I started at 25 and I was like, oh, I should have started even younger. Like, but I think as soon as you really can, like the most important thing is, to get started. So I was just really excited and yeah, I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you used to think that investing was something that like only rich people did. Like you had to have a large amount of money to start investing.
Yeah. That's I definitely thought that like I knew about investing and it was like something I thought, oh, I'll do that when I'm rich. Like it wasn't not that I knew I was definitely going to be rich, but I thought like when I'm like in my 30s and 40s and have like excess income, like it didn't even come into my head to like start putting a little bit of it away now. Like I thought I basically thought you needed so much to even start. I thought like it wouldn't even be worth it if you only had 150 a month. Like I was like, I didn't even know like how affordable it actually is to start investing. It's not all fund managers and you need this much capital to go in with. Like it's very individual. It's literally like, you can round up your spare change now and invest it. That's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, I think we sometimes use marketing campaigns where we say to people, hey, like you can literally start with €10 a month. Like if you're putting money in your savings account, take a small amount of that and maybe start investing it. So I would kind of agree. It was like very liberating to have that kind of narrative around you where people were like, actually, the absolute greatest thing in investing is not the amount of money you start with. It's when you start. You want to maximize the amount of time. And so being young and starting at this company, I was like, okay, you know what, if I have enough money to put in savings, I'll put a little bit of it in the stock market and in some stocks picked out. So that was really, really wonderful. But I guess that kind of raises the question of setting an investment goal and kind of thinking about your long-term future, because we should probably tell people that at MyWallSt we're long-term investors. So I think really kind of when the whole GameStop fiasco happened and the meme stocks and the Reddit stocks, when they were in the news, I think people kind of began thinking of investing kind of as a game. You know, it was something that you did every day. You buy and sell, and your attention always needs to be on the stock market. And you know, you need to be using Robinhood and all these type of things. That's not really the game that we're playing here at MyWallSt. It's a lot of buying companies that you believe in, companies that you think have a great long-term future, will be around for 10, 20, or 30 years. And you make your initial investment and you top it up and you kind of check in to make sure that your investment thesis is still valid. And that's kind of it. You know, we don't want this taking up a huge amount of your time. And so kind of in that way, we're always trying to set long-term goals.
Yeah. And I think the biggest benefit of that is there's also like so much like research and stats to show that long-term investing outperforms like day trading. Of course, there's day traders that make a lot of money, but it's harder and it's more risky. And like on average, it's not as profitable. So I think that's another great thing. Like not only it doesn't take up, like long-term investing doesn't take up as much time as day trading, but you're going to make more money and it's safer. And, you know, you can just invest and, you know, forget about it until the next month when you have some money to divide into whatever stocks you want. It's not like you have to check the news all the time and be worrying. And, you know, something that we always say as well is if you're kept up at night worrying about your portfolio, that's bad. You know, we don't want anyone like, you know, if you can't sleep, that's a bad sign.
Yeah. And you're actually you're dead right. Like we hear that repeatedly from like analysts and statisticians. Basically, the only way that an individual investor can beat the market, and when we say beat the market, you can invest in the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies in the United States, and that's has very consistent returns. It always kind of comes back after recessions. It's a very like stable way to invest. Kind of when you buy individual companies, hopefully your goal should be to beat that market and kind of assemble a portfolio of stocks that you think have even more growth potential than the 500 largest companies in America. And truthfully, the only way for like an individual investor to beat the market and perform consistently is to be a long-term investor. Otherwise, there's just so much risk with day trading and buying and selling really, really consistently. So maybe with that in mind, so that we're both thinking about the long term, what is kind of your investment goal? Like, what are you investing for? What do you hope to accomplish with this?
Simple. I want to retire early.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to not be working late 40s, 50s. And I've seen like it is possible, you know, I've seen the stats and stuff. If I'm consistent enough and invest in the right businesses, hopefully like I will be able to like retire early. And that's the financial freedom, I think, dream that we all have. And like in this kind of like at the moment you need to be as well, like, you know, the cost of living is rising so much that we can't just depend on our salaries anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I think like my kind of semi long-term goal is maybe to get like a house down payment out of this. And we've had users of the MyWallSt product write into us and say that, you know, I've been investing for 5 or 6 years with you guys since the beginning, and it helped me have a down payment to get a mortgage or that type of thing. Or we had a user
mortgage
early, like
so 15
recently,
years
like
early. Yeah, that woman did. That was amazing to hear. Like,
crazy. Yeah, like really, really great.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
so
those things will allow you to like retire early. Like, you know, if your house is paid off, that's massive.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, since we're both kind of early days in our investment journey, I guess it's worthwhile going back to the beginning and having a look at what was your first stock when you joined MyWallSt.
My first stock was actually Netflix, because I loved that message that you know, James and Emmet and everyone used to kind of reiterate, buy what you know. And Netflix is something that I use every day. So I was like, love Netflix. It's great stock. And I think I was just excited to invest in something that I was very familiar with. I know how it runs. I know how it makes money. And it's a nice company to follow along with, because when you see it like, you know, creating all these originals, and when the series do well and when their movies do well, you're just like, oh, I'm an investor in that. So Netflix was mine. What was yours?
Well, before you ask me that, what percentage of your desire to invest in Netflix stemmed from Emmet's original investment story from back in the day?
Okay, yeah. So to tell everyone, this is a great story. Um, I think it was 2003. I think it was that Emmet sold his car and put it all into Netflix stock. We don't know how much his car was worth, but still, I think Netflix was like a dollar 20 cent per share, something like that. And
I
now
think at the time the company like
$250 per share. So
yeah, and at the time I think Netflix was only in like 6 or 7 states in the United States, and we're just doing DVDs. Like it
yeah,
wasn't even streaming or anything like that yet.
yeah, he
And
got in so early. Like it was
yeah,
amazing how he noticed that.
and I remember him saying that the reason he was so drawn to Netflix was he hated Extravision and the late fees, and so he was like, "What company is trying to disrupt this space?"
Yeah, yeah,
Because yeah, out of kind of disdain. But yeah, it's been his most successful holding, and it's kind of there's sometimes newspapers write articles about him
yeah,
about
yeah.
him
In the
selling his
office,
car.
there's a few, framed photos of him in the paper telling his story. I actually recently did
Yeah,
a TikTok about it, and it did quite well.
nice.
If I may
Ooh,
say so myself. Yeah,
there
I
you go.
just think people love that. That little like selling your car. Like even though Anne Marie, I think we've said before, we don't want, we're not advising
Please don't
anyone to
sell your
sell their
car.
car to put it into one stock.
No.
This is a random story.
This was a fluke. This was before Emmett wrote the 6 golden rules of investing, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
built
also a
a product.
professional. Yeah, he's also.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, what was your first stock?
My first stock was actually Slack, which the reason I decided to go with Slack is prior to working here, I had worked at a company that used Microsoft Teams, and my disdain, pure disdain for Teams, I just could not get over that product. I thought it was so poor, it was so hard to use. And I just like so many things that Microsoft builds. I'm like, why does this look like it hasn't been updated since 1998? Like, I just found it
Mm,
so frustrating. I find Outlook so impossible to use. And then I came here and I used Slack for a week. And first off, Slack, very easy to learn how to use. And I was like, this is great. Like, this is so disruptive. And it was kind of a David and Goliath story because obviously Microsoft is a huge company and Slack was a startup and was small. And the first I put money into it and I felt really good. I was kind of like, you know what, I'm starting a new job. This job is about investing. The company gives you a little bit of money to invest initially to make sure that you're kind of participating. And I was like, this is a good omen. Like this is a product I use at
yeah.
work. I use it every day. I felt good about it, put money in. And on top of that, I remember Rory telling me a story really early days about how Slack was used by 90% of tech startups in the United States and Europe. And that
Wow.
had given him the idea of as these tech companies begin to scale, they're going to need to add more and more and more employees to their Slack membership, which means Slack is going to balloon as all of these companies that use it balloon. And I remember thinking that was like so smart and innovative. Yeah. And so I put money into it. And then for truthfully, the absolute like the next day after I put money into it, it just read completely down into the toilet. I think at one point I was down like 50%. First stock I ever bought. I was so upset. I was like, this is terrible. I'm terrible at doing this, blah, blah, blah. And then one day I was at work, typing away, writing up an article, and got a message from Rory, and he was like, Salesforce is acquiring Slack. And I went to look at my
Yeah.
holding, and the stock had just shot up by like 80%. It was crazy.
So how devastated were you when you found out that Salesforce bought Slack? Like I know a lot of people are frustrated if they buy into a company and they're kind of acquired before they reach their full potential.
Yeah, it was kind of upsetting because like Slack was at the time I think a smaller medium sized cap company, which means that they sometimes are a little bit more risky. They tend to be a little bit more volatile. And then it got acquired by Salesforce, which is like a boat of a company. It's huge. It's multi billion dollar business, very large. And it's kind of sad because in the transaction, like when Slack was acquired, like I was given Salesforce stock in exchange, and I was like, well, that's nice because Salesforce is a very solid company, very good performer. But it's a bummer because like all this potential and growth, like exponential growth that Slack could have had, it gets absorbed into a much larger company, and it means that the entire company will only go up, a little bit. Like kind of all that growth gets outweighed by the much larger Salesforce company.
Yeah,
So that was
for
sad to
sure.
kind of see it get acquired, but it was kind of nice because I had been very bummed out about going into the red. But it was nice to kind of have my first stock that ended up getting acquired. I ended up making a bit off of it. I was like, okay, now I feel good about this. And then like 6 or 7 months later, Emmet did a big stats project about his own holdings, and he had someone go back to when he started investing in, I think, 91 or 92.
Oh, I remember this, yeah.
And yeah, and they basically looked to see when Emmet bought a position in any company, how likely was it that upon him buying it that the stock would drop. And it came out to like 98 or 99% of companies. And it was kind of Emmet statistically going and proving to investors. He was like, look, no matter what you buy, no matter how confident you are in this company, when you buy that stock, it's going to drop. So you should only be buying companies that you feel so good about that if the stock drops, you will have the faith and the confidence to be like, no, do you know what? I believe in this company. It's, this is long-term investing. I'm thinking about 10 years and 20 years. I'm not thinking about right now, today, or next week. And so I take a lot of comfort from that. So anytime I buy a company and it ends up dropping a bit, I'm always like, no, do you know what? It's okay. Because 99% of the time this happens to Emmet, and he always comes out on top. So that was a good lesson to learn.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially at the moment as well, when like the market is down. It is good to hear things like that it's normal, it happens, and they'll go back up.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of like what I learned from my first investment. I think it was like an important lesson to have. What do you think would be your first kind of educational lesson that you got from buying Netflix?
I don't know, do I have any particularly for Netflix? Well, I guess it has been interesting to see, like Amazon, Apple, Disney kind of all enter the streaming space. So I'm a bit like, oh, this is even more so than when I first invested. There's more competition. So that's been like a lesson to learn as well. Like, just because there is competition, it's not like, it doesn't mean the end of a stock. So basically just not to panic, not to worry. But I think in general, for my first few investments, I think I invested in too many. I think I was just like, say if I invested like 150, I think at the start a month, I was dividing them by like 20 stocks, which is not what you're meant to do. Like, you're meant to hold as many as you can keep track of. And I don't think I was doing that, especially as like a very new investor. So if I could go back, I would like just not invest in so many. Like, this, it's kind of better to have put a bit more into less companies, and then ones you keep track of, and make sure you actually truly believe in them and you understand them and you're reading up on them. But I think that was something to learn as well. Like, you just get excited at the start. You're like, oh, I want to invest in that. I want to invest in that. And working on MyWallSt, we get like so much information about stocks, and it's so easy to get excited about different companies all the time that we're just like, oh, that sounds great, that sounds great, that sounds great. But it's also something to be like, okay, you don't have to buy all of them.
And it's like, you're dead right about the excitement. Like, when you start learning about investing for like the first 3 months, it's the most thrilling thing ever. Also, we were at such a disadvantage. So we entered MyWallSt October of 2020. And at the time, to be fair, we were in the middle of the pandemic, but for those people that don't know, growth stocks, which is kind of what we would be investing in, like a lot of tech companies, stuff like that, were doing really, really, really well, because a lot of people who were continuing to work during the pandemic had a lot of excess cash because everything was closed down. They couldn't spend money on anything. They weren't going on vacations. So it meant that a lot of excess cash began to flow into the stock market, and it just sent so many stocks so high. February of 2021 rolled around and everything just fell. The market just kind of lost its faith in growth stocks. We might be coming back right now, and we've had a lot of like political and economic issues that have arisen. So the market isn't as fun as it was in October of 2020.
So fun back then.
But like, I guess like
green shoots everywhere.
Every day.
Paddy's Day in your portfolio.
And I remember we would have stocks like Lemonade. I remember like sometimes you'd open the app and it had gone up 25% in one day. It was insane. It was great. But it hasn't been like that since then. But I'm kind of thankful, because I do think it taught us that important lesson of like, it will be exciting at the beginning, but you always have to like tamper down your excitement a little bit and remind yourself to be reasonable, because the longer you do invest, and now we're almost 2 years into it, it just becomes very routine, and you just kind of put money in the stocks you pick out and feel comfortable with, and just do it, and you don't really think about it. It is almost like putting money into a savings account, whereas at the beginning it's kind of like a little bit of a game to you because you're just, you think you're going to be a millionaire overnight, and that's not exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, going on from there, this was a surprising stat that I found. That like basically the benefits of starting, when you're young, basically as soon as possible. So when you're 18, you can start investing. Yep. So I was playing around with MyWallSt's compound interest calculator. Shout out to Alejandro, our head of labs, who made that, because literally like it's so good for social media content. I can just share them, and it's just so a nice way of reassuring people, and basically just like sharing stats about how much you can make by your investments compounding over time. So
also, we should say to people that they can go on and use the compound calculator themselves and run some of their own simulations. Yeah.
So big lead up to this stat.
Go
on. So if I started investing when I was 18 and I put $25 into the stock market a week, I would have over $18,000 right now as I'm 27.
Wow.
And that's with an average yearly return of 11%. Wow. Which is like decent return.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like even that, like, $25 a week, it might be like a takeaway or, it's something very small, but just showing the importance of starting, as early as possible, I think is just so cool. Like and people, again, that kind of goes with what I was saying earlier, and people think you need so much money to start investing. And you don't. You can start with even less than that. It doesn't have to be $25 a week. It could be 10 a week. It's just having that mindset of putting something in, and the earlier the better. Then it has longer to kind of compound.
Yeah, it is. You tend to hear people kind of when they find out that you work in investing, they tend to come up to you and be like, "Oh, like, what should I do? Like, how do I start investing?" Like, they're always looking for company names. They're always kind of looking for that thing. And I'm always saying them like, no less than number one is to start, like, particularly if you're young, like if you're in your 20s, because when you start investing in your 30s, then you have to take into consideration more factors. You have to be you have to take on less risk because there's a possibility you might need the money sooner than you think. Whereas if you're in your 20s, you have such a long-term horizon in front of you. It's absolutely like, if you're thinking about investing, the time to start investing is today.
And it's also it teaches you budgeting skills as well. Like when I get paid now, like in my head, I think, well, this much is going to my investment portfolio, like it needs to. And then you budget the rest of your, like, whatever you have. So I think it has stopped me, spending that money on things I don't really need. Now moving on to some of our regular segments. Bet you didn't know. So the first one is, bet you didn't know that women make better investors than men. So yeah, there's been like countless studies that show that women actually outperform men when it comes to investing. And I think this is for a multiple of reasons. But Anne-Marie, you kind of went into depth about this in one of the recent pieces that you did for the MyWallSt app. Why do you think it's the top reason why women actually make great investors and sometimes they outperform men?
It's actually interesting. The thing that make women the best investors also makes them less likely to invest, and that's because they are less likely to take risks. Pretty consistently, women tend to save more money than they invest, but that also means that when women do invest, they tend to leave money in their investments for much longer, and they tend not to move them around so much. So men are more likely to, the market is down and they panic and they pull money out of stocks, whereas women are better at kind of having a level head and being like, no, I'm going to ride this out. We're going to see what happens. And that is great. However, the issue of women saving too much and not investing enough leads to some issues down the line. And so there's been some studies done that in the US, upon retirement, women tend to have 40% less money saved and invested for their retirement compared to men. And obviously, like, there's like the issue of the wage gap and things like that, and often women having to take time off work to raise children, the lack of maternal supports, or even the fact that women tend to work in fields where they get paid less, and then by making less money, that gets compounded over time to mean that they may have 40% less in retirement. So it is a huge issue. We need to get more women investing. It's a very important topic.
Girl Boss of the Week.
Okay, so this segment aims to poke some harmless fun at a company, individual, or just about anyone else who has truly out girl boss themselves recently. So, Anne-Marie, would you like to tell everyone who is FML's very first girl boss of the week?
Well, before we get into that, I just want to we're gonna define some terms here, just so we don't get in trouble. So we're gonna have a bit of a history lesson about where the term girl boss came from and how it's kind of been reappropriated in today's culture. So the term girl boss was first used by Sophia Amoruso, and she was the founding CEO of the clothing company Nasty Gal. In 2014, is it
Nasty? Is that
okay?
not? Yeah, I think that is a Netflix show.
Oh, okay. Crazy. I didn't know that. Well, anyway, the clothing company Nasty Gal, and in 2014, she wrote a memoir in which she used hashtag Girlboss as the title. And from there, it kind of entered our collective lexicon and became this battle cry of an elite group of women who had risen to high positions within corporate America and claimed by doing so they were dismantling the patriarchy. So individuals like Sheryl Sandberg come to mind. She's very high ranking in Facebook, and around the same time, she published a book called Lean In which she called upon women to basically create their own equality in the workplace by working harder and demanding more positions and power. The kind of irony around the title was that many of these quote unquote girl bosses were working for or leading companies that did little to address systemic issues within our society, economy, or culture, other than having like just a female CEO or board member. So, for example, Amoruso from Nasty Gal, her career there was plagued by constant turnover, accusations of discrimination, and abusive management. The company eventually went bankrupt. And so, for this reason, girl boss today has been reappropriated and become an ironic label that the new age of the internet loves. So you hear a lot of Gen Z people use it on TikTok. And so if someone today calls you a girl boss, they're telling you that your branding and your marketing and how you label yourself is in contradiction with your actions. And Alex Abad Santos' advice said that gaslight, gatekeep, and girl boss is the live, laugh, love of toxic, exclusionary white feminism. So we are going to contribute to this rebranding of girl boss, to use it as a label to call out people, companies, or trends that say one thing or do another. So are you ready to hear the first one?
I am. Go for it.
Okay. So our girl boss of the week this week is Peloton.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Tragic. How the mighty have fallen. The reason that
why.
Peloton is the girl boss of the week is because of an issue called cosmetic oxidation. Have you ever heard of cosmetic oxidation?
I can't say I have.
No. Well, actually, the regular person word for cosmetic oxidation is rust. So we found out. Okay. I know, yeah. We found out from a leak that the Financial Times covered a few weeks ago that Peloton tried to accelerate its manufacturing process during lockdown and at the height of the pandemic, because so many people were ordering Peloton bikes and they needed to be able to keep up with orders to, make money and impress all of its stockholders, that it began cutting corners, and for that reason, its quality control kind of fell off. So they were selling bikes with rust, but the company calls it cosmetic oxidation. So don't worry, it's not rust. And they would paint over the rust with black paint that they said fixed the issue. But a lot of quality control people who worked at Peloton previously before the pandemic have said that issues like that would not have passed traditional quality controls and the bikes wouldn't have been sold. They actually would have been scrapped due to safety concerns. Well, Peloton has said that none of these bikes should have safety concerns, but it's just another issue. They've had so many problems with management and increasing prices of bikes really quickly. And yeah, they've just had a terrible kind of 6 to 8 months. And this was just the most ridiculous element of it so far. So our girl boss of the week this week is Peloton.
A great choice.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. That is the wildest story ever. Like, how did they think they were going to get away with that?
I guess people, the rust tend to be happening like on the underside of the seats and underside the handlebars. So I think they thought no one would ever look down there. They were like, oh, don't worry. No one's going to look under the seat. Just put the seat on the bike and that'll be it. We'll just sell it. It's fine.
Yeah. Peloton's been having like a nightmare though recently. I just feel like they're always in the news and it's always negative. Yeah. They're like, even their Sex and the City debut.
Yeah. Didn't he die in the Peloton?
Yeah. But I don't know. Like, they obviously must have known that was going to happen. Maybe they didn't. They probably.
I'd say they would have had to have been told, because I think their brand could be seen. Like, everyone knew it was a Peloton bike. Like, it wasn't a generic one. So maybe they knew.
They probably did have to be told, because like, or else it's kind of like, yeah, slander.
Yeah. Maybe did the cosmetic oxidation cause him to die?
No, he was just working out on it. And
Oh,
he died.
okay. Well.
But yeah, like not great. But then the actor, I can't remember his name, but who plays Big, he did an ad for Peloton. After.
Did he?
Yeah. So maybe.
And then he just got caught in a massive scandal and got fired off everything.
Who? Big?
The actor. Yeah.
No, he didn't get fired. He didn't want to be in it. He said that he would come back to the reunion, but he wanted them to kill him off because he only wants to be in one episode.
Oh, no, but he has all these harassment allegations against him now. So he got like fired off of all his other projects. Yeah. So that's terrible that Peloton hired him for an ad.
Oh God.
What
this
an absolute
getting deeper.
Another scandal.
Peloton, I don't know. Maybe they have like
tragic.
a really weird PR team.
No, I'd say they don't have a PR team. Okay. I can't believe we just uncovered that live.
Yeah. You're like,
okay.
Everyone listen. It's hot news.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a wrap for the first episode of FML. Thanks so much for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, tune back in 2 weeks when we will be discussing the Becky ETF, the importance of buying what you know, and what stock me and Nicole would pick if we were starting our portfolios from scratch today.
And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us over on Instagram at Fun My Life Podcast, on Twitter at MyWallSt HQ, and on TikTok at MyWallSt.
And finally, if you're ready to start your investing journey and looking for resources, check out MyWallSt's Getting Started podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, or download the MyWallSt Learn app. Both are linked below. If you want access to our list of stocks, handpicked by our analyst, and lots of other interesting finance and business content, download the MyWallSt app and create your free account today.